Okay. Now let me do this.
I'm on my own, broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down all around this empty town. I'm searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Don't stare 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near in hopes you'd chase away.
We're going here in just a second.
I'm on my own.
Give a couple minutes for people to hop in.
And now I'm chasing nightmares. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Check, check. Todd, you got audio on me, bud? Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up in the chat.
No point in blaming you, you did not know.
Check, check.
Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Yo! How's everybody doing tonight? I'm just setting a couple things, pinning a couple messages at the top here. Want to make sure everybody can hear me all right. If somebody can leave in the chat that you can hear me, see me, all of those wonderful things, we will get going into this episode tonight. It's taper time, so I got myself some non-alcoholic beers for tonight. so I can feel like I'm partying on this Saturday. Do you guys have me in the, can you hear me? Let me see. I can just pull my phone out. Oh, good. Thank you. All right. There is like a 30-second delay between the chat. I pin that between the chat and this. So sometimes when I talk and ask you questions, I got to wait almost a minute for you guys to get back to me. But anyway, if you leave me questions, make sure you give me like a minute to get those and get them back. I'm just getting a text. Make sure it's not from my wife. Okay, it's not. So welcome to another episode of 50K Ready. And this episode is going to be all Javelina like race prep, all the week leading in. We're going to talk everything from tapering to heat training and adapting to the heat, my strategies, my pace goals, my nutrition. I'll take any questions here in the live stream, in the chat, and also like where I'm at mentally and the major differences between this time and Canyons. Also, if you are listening to this on the playback, I'm very, very excited. I got myself a new fancy microphone. So this is apparently, I got the same one like Joe Rogan has. I don't know if you guys can tell the difference, but the reason I was able to get this nice thing is because of all the support that I get from my channel members, as well as people that donate in other ways, shapes, and forms. So thank you for supporting the channel. Here's some of that generosity right here, this nice quality microphone. Before I talk about myself for a long time, I can't say it enough how much I love seeing people dominate. And just seeing Jake Mooney, what he did at Moab 240, I must have said to him 10 times, like, dude, I don't know what I did to deserve you as a friend, but he's the man. And one day I'll get him on the podcast and we'll talk about Moab and what he went through. And all I'll say is the kid battled and was sick early and was as low as 5th to last. I think he was 5th away from the sweeper at the end of the first day, and then ended up finishing like 60th. And I think in the last 24 hours, he passed like 50 guys. He started to feel better, but he got that finish done. And also guest of the show, Chad Kosi, he also finished the Moab 240 as well. I think that knocks off all of the 200 pluses for Chad going into the Arizona Monster 300. So, you know, all those things. And Mike Terry, I don't think we've been on here a while. He finished his first 50K, and yeah, just people doing awesome things, and that makes me so happy. So I it's not always about me, because the only reason I'm doing this is so that, you know, people see that a random 40-year-old dude that used to be drunk every second of most of the days can turn around and put a pretty good plan together. You know, pretty good year I've had so far. I can't tell a lie. So first, we are in taper, and what that means for me now. The volume going into Canyons was a little bit different type volume, but I think that was because it's a different course. Did I want to get my volume higher? Maybe. I peaked out pretty much in the mid to high 80s. I did start running without my watch 1 day a week in the last couple of weeks, just to like go out and run free. So the mileage it shows on Strava, you could figure probably add 6 to 10 miles more on that every week. And, you know, so that's in the mid 80s, and I was happy with that. And that's where I got to in Canyons. My biggest week leading into Canyons was 2 weeks out. I got 80 miles, boom, and then we went into taper. I personally like nice short tapers. And I think it depends on really the type of training that you do, and also like how your body and mind reacts. Like, I am very ADHD. I am very anxiety driven. And if I tapered for too long, I would be a mess. Even saying the word taper, I get a head cold, everything hurts, I have a stomach ache, I start thinking about my flights being canceled, all these things. So if I did that for 2 weeks, frankly, I just couldn't do it. I also tend to stay at a pretty low intensity. This was the biggest intensity that I've really pushed in a while, because I do want to go pretty quickly in Javelina, or at least quicker than I did in Canyons. I need to finish. Canyons, I went 32 hours, and this one has a cutoff of 30 hours. So if I finish the race, I'm definitely going to PR my 100. So that's pretty much going to be the Strava title, like PR 100 miler, if I can get to the finish line. But with that taper came 40 miles this week. I still have, today's Saturday night. I'll get out and run 10 more tomorrow. I'm at like 29 miles for the week. And one thing I've always talked about when it comes to taper is change your volume, but not your intensity. So I still did some speed. I still did some incline work this week. I just lowered that volume to keep the stimulus there for my legs, but just do it on a lower volume. But it is really awesome if you're having a good taper when your legs like start to wake up, because when you're training for, man, I think I did like a 16-week block, you get to a point where you always are living with tired, achy legs and feet. Like, not pain. I don't walk around in pain. But in the morning, I get up and like those first couple steps are a little like, and then down the stairs, I'm a little crickety. And by the end of this week, I was like running down the stairs in the morning. Like, I just feel so good. I was even saying we took the kids for a walk tonight, and my legs, I was just like, wow, they're just so fresh. They feel so alive. So we did 40 miles this week, and that will be that. On top of that, the frequency of the sauna picked up dramatically. Now, I always hop in the sauna when I can, and I think it's great. But I think there's also two different ways to look at the sauna, like one being for like strictly heat acclimation, and then one for like general health. So like from the general health and like wellness and feeling good and recovery, probably 3-4 times a week is plenty. But I pretty much followed David Roach's plan on heat acclimation and kind of like looked at his sauna sessions. And I started, once the weather started getting cool, I started wearing the hoodie on certain runs, not every run. Essentially just getting used to being warm. I don't love being warm. Frankly, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So I knew that this was something that I had to work on, but I will say I did a ton of research when I went into it. Because one of the major things is if you do this and you don't replenish and recover properly with fluids and electrolytes and things like that, it could be extremely detrimental. The sauna itself puts so much stress on my body. When I switched for the last 2 weeks, I've been in every night. And when I switched from a couple times here and there to every night, I felt shot. Like, it drains you in a different kind of way. You're not sore, but it sucks the life out of you. And I was saying to my brother, it took me 2-3 days to really figure out how much water I was actually losing in the sauna. And going back, if I would have known what I know now, I would have just weighed myself before, weighed myself after, and that would have been that. I would have known exactly. But it's over a liter for the 30 minutes that I'm in there. So in 30 minutes, I'm losing a liter of fluid. And I just, you look at a liter, those 2 soft flasks, you're like, there's no way I'm losing that much sweat. But then you wring your shirt out and you're like, holy cow. So if you're going to do that, please do your research. Okay. I'll just tell you some things that I do, but everybody's different. Okay. So I did the running with the hoodie on for a little bit, and then I just needed a break from that, and I went into the sauna. I don't know if I could do both the sauna and the hoodie thing at the same time. That might be too much stress, to be honest. So first I did like running hot, and then I'm in like the build plasma phase in my blood. And from the research that I've done, I have infrared. So I'm going in for 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes. It's generally between 135 and 145 degrees. The humidity in there starts low. It starts at like maybe 20, but then with just me in there sweating, it probably ends around 45, 50. I'm not bringing any fluids in with me, and I'm also not drinking for the first 10 to 15, sometimes 20 minutes after. Generally, that's just my cool down. I take a shower. And the reason is because, like I mentioned, for the health and wellness, for the heat acclimation point, like, yeah, I'm trying to be uncomfortable in the heat, but like a 30-minute really, really hot, like that's not going to mimic course conditions. What I'm really trying to do is build blood volume in plasma, right? Plasma is like a huge percentage of our blood. It's pretty much just all water, but essentially I'm just trying to raise that up. That's the first thing I'm trying to do. So by not drinking in there, it's really forcing the body to like build that plasma up. And then the other thing that I'm really thinking about is getting my body to start sweating sooner. You can be an inefficient sweater, if that makes sense. So, and you'll notice this when you first get into the sauna. It'll take like 10, 15 minutes sometimes to start sweating. And then after a couple days, and you do it for a couple days, you realize that like you just start sweating sooner and sooner. I get in now in the first 2 minutes, my forehead is already there. And at 5 minutes, I'm already dripping. So between raising that blood volume and then as well as, getting to that sweat point and becoming a more efficient sweater, those are really the two things that I was looking for in that heat acclimation process. Now, tomorrow's my last day of taper. Next week, I don't consider a taper week. I could consider it race week, and we'll talk about my strategies for that. But I think tomorrow I'll get in there, and then that will be good, and then that will be all the stress that I really need. I think that's going to be good enough, but then I will shut the sauna down, right? Because the end of taper, I do not want to add that extra stress. As far as like I mentioned before, how I don't really love a huge taper. I love a very, very low stress race week when it comes to running because I stress so much about other stupid stuff that I should not stress about. So during race week, I will pretty much run. I will try and run 2-3 times during the week, probably just 30 minutes. But if I don't want to run, I'm not going to run. Simple as that. I do have like one mandatory run where I'll run like maybe 2 days out, which is going to be a travel day for me now. So maybe we'll run a little on Friday when we get there, depending on how the day looks. But if I don't run at all, I don't run at all. I think canyons I ran on like the Tuesday before, and then I didn't run at all until the race. And that was totally fine for me. So that's kind of like what taper and the heat has been. It was a 3-week process with the heat, 1 week, every run in a hoodie inside. And then the next 2 weeks are just every single night in the sauna and just trying to work on that blood volume as well as bringing down my sweat to be more efficient and start to sweat earlier. And then the other parts of taper were lowering volume, but not lowering intensity or stimulus that I'd been doing during my normal training. If you have any questions about that, guys, here live in the chat, please leave them. I can go back and I will definitely answer them. So now let's talk about the actual race and logistics of that and how that's going to work. My biggest fear right now, if I'm being honest, is my flight not taking off. That is really my biggest fear. It's really my only fear is my flight not. Once my flight on Thursday takes off, I think I'm going to be like 99% emotionally ready for this race. I just found out that Jacob's going to come crew and pace me, which is going to be insane considering the guy just did Moab. And the first thing he said after Moab was, "Oh, I'm coming to Javelina." Like I said, that's the type of friend he is. I got my buddy Christian, who I did the rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon with. He lives out there in Phoenix. So he's, since day one, been like, dude, we're going to get you there. I know he paced at Saddles, banged himself up a little bit on a fall. So he's 50-50. I told him, like, dude, if you're injured, you're injured. It's okay. But I still think he's going to try and get out and pace me for a loop. So very, very lucky and excited. And I've had a couple other people that said maybe. So if you're a maybe, come on in. You can get there. On social media, I'll post my tracker. I think I'm bib 1123. So you'll be able to, our Vipa does a really, really good job. And with all the amount of aid stations there are, they check in on you pretty quick. So I fly out Thursday night. I get there like 11 p.m. local. So we're talking 1 o'clock in the morning for me. But with personal days, I couldn't take Thursday off and fly earlier. And I didn't want to fly early Friday morning in case my flight got canceled or something. Like I wanted to give myself a buffer. If something happened on Thursday night, I could still get out Friday morning. And then I got a hotel really, really close to the airport because I'm getting in so late. And then on the morning, Friday morning, I got to get over to the race site, start finish. I got to get my bib, do all that stuff. But I also got an overnight tent. So I'm camping on site race night. So I got to get there and claim that and set that up and then try and get over to Walmart and get my Red Bulls. That's really all I'm going to need to really pick up. Maybe a small cooler and ice I'll grab as well. And then I'm staying on the grounds race night. From what I heard in their Facebook groups, like it actually is pretty quiet, all things considered. I don't really plan on sleeping that much anyway, so I'll toss and turn. I would much rather be on site, like roll out of bed and be at the start than do the whole hotel, try and get over there, try and park, walk up. That's just not me. I want to be there. So I will sacrifice a little bit of night noise and a little bit of lack of sleep to have myself, good to go, ready to rock. So that's what I'm going to be doing the night before. And and then we're going to get ourselves right into race night. I'm probably just going to eat standard. I'll probably grab like pasta or something like that. And I'll just eat that. And then I usually do Creatures of Habit overnight oats for breakfast. That's my standard breakfast. And a Red Bull or coffee, whichever I can get a hold of. I don't care where the caffeine comes from. And we'll be pretty good. I got a question from Todd over here. Did you run in your Mountaco shoes for your most recent 50K? Because you said you were planning on wearing them for Javelina 100. Okay, yeah. So we can talk kit real quick. I've run a 50K every weekend for the last 3 or 4 weeks. The first big one I posted on Strava was the 6-hour race that I did. It was a 6-hour race, 2-hour loops. And I think I ended up getting 39 miles or so. And I wore the Hood to Coast, Hood to Coast, that race I did. The Mount to Coast R1s in that race and loved them. I have loved them. I now have 4 pairs of Mount to Coast shoes. This is my second pair of R1. So I ran in those. The next week I did a 50K. I ran in the S1s. I have a pair of the S1s a full size up. So those might be like my late mileage shoes if my feet swell. So I have my standard R1s that I'll be running in, and then I'll have the S1s as a backup. Those are the only shoes that I'm bringing. To answer your question, yes, I wore them this past weekend in the 50K I did, and that one was way more trail. It was probably a lot more similar to what I'm going to see in Javelina than the 6-hour and the previous 50K that I did that were a little bit more like packed path in a state park. And they performed great. Yeah. So I am definitely going to be wearing road shoes. That is no questions asked. And I'm starting in the R1s. And then I am either going to finish in the R1s or my feet are going to swell. And for that reason only, I'll switch over to the S1s. That's the plan for shoes. And then standard other kit. I'm going to be wearing just spandex. I love the rabbit shorts that I've been wearing in. I can carry so many gels. And with this loop, I'm only going to need to carry like 5 gels on me, which is going to be fantastic. I will say, as far as kit, one of the biggest things I've been going back and forth is whether I should wear a vest or not, or go 2 handhelds. For the 6-hour, I did a handheld and I just didn't like carrying it all day. But then I'm like, all right, was it more annoying or was it heavy, as opposed to what a pack is going to do as far as hold heat and things like that. But I want to film it. I'm going to document it. So I definitely need my GoPro. I'll say to my wife, I think I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of time to be able to have my GoPro and be able to have my pack and everything like that. And then generally I run in the rabbit button downs. I'm not going to be running in the rabbit button downs this year. With the pack I've mentioned on previous episodes, the button pockets inside the pack, they just chafe me and just makes it a little bit more annoying. So I'm going to be wearing an all white. Mounts Coast sent me a shirt to wear. I'm going to be wearing all white to reflect sun. My Outdoor Research, I think it is. None of the sponsor guys. Outdoor Research arm sleeves. I like arm sleeves because I can pull them up, down. And also I can shove ice in the top and the bottom. I'll be wearing a rabbit ice bandana. You should not run this race without an ice bandana. I'm going to be wearing an Outdoor Research, one of the very common hats with the pretty much the tent sides that come all the way around, just to keep the sun completely off of me. And that's pretty much going to be the kit. I plan at night to just throw in my Patagonia on a dry shirt and do that. And speaking of the night, I was saying to my wife, we'll get to strategy, but when you do Ironmans, getting off the bike is just such a huge relief. Like when you get off the bike, things are good. I feel like if I can get to the night, that is my main goal. Like just get to the night and we're going to be good as far as the strategy is concerned. But yeah, that's the kit. That is the full kit and I'm sticking to it. I do have two headlamps. I have a night core, which I've been loving. And then my Phoenix that I've been wearing for years. I'm going to have one in each drop bag and I'll just grab whenever it gets dark, whichever aid station I'm at. That'll be the headlamp that I'm going to be using. They both operate pretty much the same. The night core is a little bit more comfortable on the head, but the light isn't as good. So it's weird. They're one half dozen of the other to me. So it won't matter what headlamp I'll have on. But in the night, I'll definitely be wearing Recovery Strong gear. I feel like all Jared has is black shirts and this red one. But as far as like race shirts, they're all black and I can't wear them in the desert, but I can wear them at night. So I'll be rocking the Recovery Strong squad for sure. Making sure I got all of their gear on when it's dark out. And then maybe next year we can talk them into making a little bit, some white gear. As far as strategy, you guys, I mean, we can talk time. I've said 24 and that is still the primary goal. But in talking with people in the DMs, I think that, or maybe I'm painting the picture where like it's 24 or bust. Like it is not like that. It is, I'm going out and I want to have a little bit more fun than I had in Canyons and definitely going to PR because I'm going to finish. But I think my main goal is to be efficient and not lose the mental game. That's really the main goal. And I know that if I achieve that goal, then sub 24 will just be a part of it. So when I say I want to go sub 24, that's like, if I go sub 24 and suffer the entire time, like bad, like I'll be happy. Let's not get it twisted, but like, it's more, I want sub 24 to be the product of a really, really good race and a really, really good time and not care. I will not have time or distance on my watch. I will only have heart rate. That is it. And to be honest, I'm probably not even going to like look at my heart rate that much. I just learned that the more I look at my watch and the more I think about pace and things like that, I get myself into a dark place. That's where my dark place comes from. It comes from pace and not meeting that expectation. I know that if I go out and I run with a perceived effort that's really, really light and conversational, and I stay cool during the day and I pick it up a little bit at night, I know I'll be under sub 24. So that's the goal, I guess. But as far as like strategy of how you pull that off, man, that's what I've been going back and forth because I've been running these 5-hour 50Ks pretty comfortably. In the 6 hour, I did 4:35, but that's like pushing like 9 minutes, right? So I know that the heat is going to be a factor, and I know that that's mostly going to be laps 2 and 3, and then I'll have 4 and 5 in the dark, and hopefully we won't see sunrise. So with the race starting at 6, I know that from reading race reports and things that most people are able to ditch their headlamp halfway through that first loop at Jackass Junction. So I figure that first loop is going to be not the extreme heat of the day. Like I'm probably going to be done with that loop by like 10 in the morning. So I'm going to be comfortably conservative. I'm going to move efficiently, knowing that I'm going to slow down. So if you're watching the tracker and you're like, man, did he go out too fast? And then you start seeing my second loop slow down a bunch. You're like, he went out too fast. Nah, not so fast. Not so fast. I think a real indication for those of you that hear this before the race and that are going to follow the tracker is if my first loop out of the dark, so that should be about my fourth loop. If my fourth loop, the pace goes up or stays about the same, I think you'll know that I'm having a pretty good day. I expect the pace to drop from the first lap to the second lap and from the second lap to the third lap. I expect that. I do expect to be able to pick it up once it gets colder. So wait till the fourth lap before you decide if I'm screwed or not. I mean, you can kind of get an idea of the pace, but you are going to see me decline a little bit for that second and that third loop for sure. Now, what do I got to do to get under the 24 hours? I got to pretty much do like 430s a lap, essentially. That'll pretty much get me there. I would like to be somewhere around 4 hours, probably the first lap, and then go like 430, 445, 430, 445, and then push on the third lap to give myself a really, really good shot, go 4 hours again, and then just do whatever I got to do on the fifth lap. That's it. That's really it. Go out pretty steady on the first, but not too hard. Pretty steady. And when I say that, I mean like heart rate 120. So heart rate 120 for me is 10 minutes on the road per mile and probably about 10:30 to 11 minutes per mile on trail. So 120 heart rate for the first loop. Second loop, just same. 120, but the pace is probably going to slow because the heat, even hotter on that third loop. And then let's get some dry clothes on and attack tonight. That's the goal. We'll be taking in probably 1.5 liters of water per hour. I'm going to carry 3 flasks on me, but I'm only going to start with maybe 2. And then I'll probably just fill them up because so in these laps, so there's 5 laps, and I think the first one's like a little bit longer, but essentially it's 5 20-mile loops. And there's aid pretty much every 4 miles. So like 4, 11, 16, and then back at 20. There's a lot of people. A lot of people on this race course. I think there's 800 people in the 100. So that first aid station 4 miles in, I'll probably skip that one. I'll probably skip through just because I just see it being a little crowded, and unless I have to use the bathroom, I'll probably skip through that one. So I'm going to start with like 3 flasks. But then other than that, I think I'll just do 2. And then after the first lap, I'll probably stop at every single one just to get ice for the day. And then at night, my goal is to just need the halfway. Jackass Junction at 10 miles, back start finish. So my guess, what times to start? 6 a.m. Arizona time. I don't know. What are they, mountain? They're 2 hours back from East Coast right now. So I think you're in Texas. They're, I think, 1 hour back from you. So 7 a.m. Saturday for you. And then I got to get in to get the buckle, the under 24-hour buckle by 6 a.m. the following day. So we're gonna do 1.5 to 2 liters in the hot. Tailwind is pretty much going to be 2 scoops per hour, and then Science and Sport Beta Fuel Naked Flavor every hour with their nootropics, which has been rocket fuel. Probably, I don't know. I'm gonna go by feel with that, but I would say probably evening-ish, maybe the third loop. I can't really do caffeine during the day, but I will say this, like most people think of caffeine as being like a stimulant as far as like making you go faster. For me, one of the things I love the most about caffeine is it eliminates brain fog for me. So like when I start getting a little bit negative in my brain, or if things start to get a little hazy, that's really when I want caffeine. I never get to like, oh, I'm exhausted. And maybe this would be the time, but like I never feel like I'm going to fall over. I did in the Appalachian Trail, but I've never felt like that exhausted where I needed caffeine to wake me up. It was always to emotionally feel better. So that's why I'll have Red Bulls as well. But the thing with caffeine, and know this if you're going to do a race, once you get on caffeine, you have to stay on it. It's worse than a sugar crash. Especially if you're doing it with Cokes and Red Bull that have the sugar and the caffeine. I found out in canyons, like the Coke was so good, but the longer I took it for, it was like my body got used to it, and I would just be like, I would take the Coke and I would leave the aid station. I'd feel incredible. But then the crash coming down immediately following that, the crash would happen sooner and sooner, where like I pretty much had to walk with a Coke and like keep it up. It was kind of like being an addict, like you grow this tolerance and you're like, oh my God, how is this happening? Like now I constantly need it. So for that reason, I will try and hold off on caffeine. But once I don't have like a tolerance, I can push the higher levels of caffeine. But that's just stuff that you learn in training, I guess. Like I know how much coffee I drink per day, how much espresso I drink per day. And yeah, I can just get that done. So yeah, I mean, besides that nutrition, we'll have water, we'll do ice, we'll do all the things. I also am very, very excited. This race is like a little bit of a who's who that I am going to fanboy out a little bit. I can't wait to bump into certain people that I know are racing, or just it being such a big event. I know there's going to be people around, or the fact that it's 20-mile loops and the guy that set the world record at Leadville, David Roach, I know he's going to lap me like 4 or 5 times. So it's going to be cool to just get lapped by pros and just to see how fast they're really, really going. And, you know, maybe lap a couple people myself. We'll see. And just get the job done. Right now, I said I want to talk a little bit the difference between this and Canyons. Canyons, I was surprisingly not like emotionally worried or concerned as I am for this race. And you'd think there'd be a lot of factors that would make me less nervous for this race. I have more experience. It's flat. It's a loop course with a ton of aid. It's historically fast, where Canyons, it's 18,000 feet, 23,000 feet. It was my first race. It's on the Western States course. Didn't really get to see my crew. I saw them like every 20-something mile. It's like, I think with Canyons, I felt really confident because I had the coach. Mike McKnight made me feel very confident in training and everything like that. He, like I said, I didn't have to worry because I believed in the training that he gave me, where this time I'm kind of believing in my own process, which is, it's hard. And that will probably be a conversation with myself. Things start to go bad, like, damn it. But also with Canyons too, I think there was a just get the first one out of the way kind of feeling, which I knew that I was very capable of. Where this one, I am putting a little bit more pressure on myself to finish a time goal. And I want to make it quite known that I know that I'm the only one that cares how fast I go. You know, nobody else cares. You know, everyone else is very supportive and they just want to see you rock. And whether I fall on my face and it doesn't happen, or, you know, if I finish in 29 hours and just make the cut, I know people will high five and give me some love. I just feel that pressure more. I'm also going without my wife, which is going to be tough. This is like the first big race that I'm not doing with her as a crew. And I'm blessed that Jake jumped on board and was going to help me. And I'm even more that Christian since day one was like, we're doing this. And like, I always knew that I had somebody there that was going to be there to help me, but still like not having the wife and knowing she's home with the kids that'll be tough. But to eliminate that, I just got to go faster so that I'm done quicker. And then I got to catch a red eye back and go back on work on Monday. But yeah, Canyons was just, I think it was more I didn't feel any pressure. I didn't. For whatever reasons, I just am this time. The pressure I'm putting on myself, my Instagram is growing a little bit, you know, more eyes on me. And I know there's a lot of haters out there and I can handle haters but I can be the biggest hater on myself. And I just want to go out and have a good race. That's it. And yeah, it's just very different. I thought it would be very similar to Canyons. But I think that's the amazing thing about Ultra is that, like, you can do a bunch of marathons, and I got to be honest with you, like, running marathons is kind of like, okay, I'm sure there's some really cool marathons left, right? There's the world majors, and I'm sure there's cool ones. But, like, I've gotten to the point now where a marathon, it's a marathon. You could pretty much train. There's not much. You can have some hills maybe, but it's all going to be on road. It's going to be controlled, this, that, and the other thing, where every ultra is different for its own reasons. You know, Canyons had a ton of downhill, which blew up quads, and a fair amount at 18,000 feet of uphill. This one, it's flatter, so you got to make sure you don't go out too hard. You know, in Canyons, I knew I would walk a bunch. This is like, I could potentially run 80, 90 miles of this and only walk 10, where I walked 40 in Canyons. So there's a lot of that. And there's the heat, you know, or it's flat and don't go out too fast, or it's too hot. There's a lot. I'm going to have to focus a lot more on the race as opposed to like the experience. And that's going to be different for me, but I'm going to document it all. I'm not allowed to bring my drone. I just found that out. I'm kind of pissed. I love my drone. Apparently there's no drones allowed there. When we get back, I have a lot of guests lined up. I've been pushing them off. Haven't recorded in a little bit. Really like to focus on the race, and some people have been giving me amazing questions. But as far as real food, Todd asked real food, and I don't want real food, to be honest. I will eat it if necessary, but I don't necessarily love aid stations. I've said this. They're not oases, and I think too many people treat them as such. They're there to fill your water and get you out of there. And I understand people that depend really heavily on aid stations. I get that. I'm very regimented. I have a very, very sensitive stomach. I know what I like. And I very rarely get to a point where I'm like, I can't take this. It happens, but for me, there's more anxiety coming into an aid station and being like, what am I going to eat? What are they going to have? Did they run out of stuff? Like I did Grindstone. They were literally serving rainwater off the tent because they ran out of water. So there's nothing like, oh, when I get there, I'm going to have a peanut butter and jelly. And I've been planning on this peanut butter and jelly. And then you get there and there's no peanut butter and jelly. You have to wait for it to get made. Or like at Crazy Mountains, I saw so many people come into aid station like, oh, I thought you guys were making coffee. And they're like, we are. We just give me a minute. I'll make it. And the people were like, I don't want to wait here while you make coffee. I thought it'd be ready like in a thing. And it was like, for that reason, I like to just be as self-sufficient as possible. And between the 200 calories of Tailwind and the 100, like 360 is really good for me, 400. If it gets to dinner time and there's like a burger there and I run by and I'm like, I can do a burger. Yeah, I'll eat it. But I will not come into any aid stations with the intention of needing their food. It'll all be I'm getting my waters filled and I see something that I want to put down, or a slice of watermelon is always really, really dope. I see something in the moment, I might grab it as far as calories are concerned. But I also have, in training, pushed the limits of like how many grams of carbs I can eat per hour and where my intensities should lie. I learned that so much in the AT with Jacob, where like I got to drop down my carbs if my intensity drops, because I was pretty much eating carbs for a higher intensity and it was upsetting my stomach because we were going slower. So not knowing exactly how many grams of carbs are in a bun or a handful of pretzels or things like that I'm a head case. It'll just stress me out. If you see me on live stream eating a burger, don't be like, you said you weren't going to eat a burger. Like if I see something and I'm like, I want that, I'm going to eat it. I'm going to eat it. But for the most part, if I can just stay pretty self-sufficient, I think that's going to be the route that I want to take. Thanks so much for the questions. I know there's a 30-second delay. Do you guys have any other questions? I mean, that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say. And then we're going to talk again after the race. I love it. Yeah, Mike, we brought you up earlier, man. Congrats on that 50K again, bud. All right, guys. Doesn't seem to be any questions. I know I came on here last second, but I appreciate you all. I really do. And, did you see, Ultra Corey's on mile 52. Yeah, I'm following that dude for sure. Also, too, right now, well, you guys are going to, it's actually probably still going to be going on when this comes live. The Backyard Ultra Team World Championship is going on. You could search that on YouTube. That's probably going to go on for a couple days. So, yeah, by the time everyone hears this on the playback, that's probably still going to be going on. And when we hear this on the playback, we'll be talking about how Ultra Corey got there. So, yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks for the reminder, Todd, for the shout out for Ultra Corey, who's also been on the show before. He's a former guest as well. But, yeah, we're going to go out there. I'm going to be thinking, you guys. I will. Send some messages. I'll probably have Jacob log into my my Instagram, and maybe he'll do a takeover for the day. Or I heard there's pretty good service on the course, so I'll check in from time to time, especially during the night. If you're on the West Coast, feel free to send me a message or a voice DM that I can listen to in the middle of the night. It's going to be a good time. All right, let's go out and get that 24-hour buckle. Go out and smash that. Oh, Mike's doing 10K tomorrow. Nice. All right, guys. Yeah, let's go to work. Let's go do this shit.